Hey guys, Morgan the Rebellious Reviewer. We talk about music, books, and movies. And today, we're going to be doing part 11 in the Album of the Day challenge. So, those of you who have seen the previous parts know that this is the challenge where me and 6 of my dragon imaginary friends choose an album using a random Pokemon generator and a random number generator. If you didn't know that, welcome. Link to the table with all the genres and Pokemon types in the description as usual. And today's Pokemon is Krabby, which is a water type. Today's genre is techno. And today's album is the Green Album by Orbital. But before I get started with my imaginary friends reviewing this, I'm gonna briefly give my thoughts on it. This album is enjoyable enough. It's got fun, danceable beats throughout. The cold, mechanical-sounding synthesizers make it sound incredibly futuristic. And some say it sounds dated now, but as someone who's not overly familiar with techno as a genre, I don't really hear it outside of that one Star Trek The Next Generation sample. My one problem with this album is that it drags on way too long. Especially Desert Storm, which did not need to be 12 minutes. This album does start to wear on me after a while, but it's still fairly enjoyable. Not as good as the other Orbital album I've heard, that being Insides, but still good. Also, that unlisted track at the end should have been cut so that Belfast could be the closing track. Seriously, that would have made a great closer. With that out of the way, let's get started with the voice acting, shall we? Hello, I'm Houdini Presto, and this is Blaze, Flarington, Bolt, Thunderstone, Skyler Wing, Forrest Woods, and Draven Onyx. This is the 11th video in the Album of the Day series. Today it's my turn to pick, and today's genre is techno. So, techno is a genre I'm not overly familiar with outside of ambient and minimal techno. Unfortunately for me, those genres have their own spot on the genre table, so I had to pick a different type of techno. I decided to go with the Green Album by Orbital because I like their ambient techno album Insides. And I heard they made some regular techno on other albums. So I picked their first album, the Green Album. This album is a lot of fun, though it drags on way too long. I know Insides was long too, but it didn't feel long. This album feels long. Still, I like the robotic sounding techno synths. I like the thumping dance beats, and I like the moments of warmth spread out between the otherwise mechanical techno songs. Also, that Star Trek sample on the Mobius made me smile. I give it the lightest possible 9 out of 10. Can I go next? I'm probably the biggest Orbital fan here. Sure, Bolt. Like I said, I'm a huge Orbital fan. I've listened to every single one of their albums, and while the Green Album is far from my favorite, I still think it's fantastic. I'm a sucker for cold, mechanical synths with just a hint of warmth. It's like watching Star Trek in musical form, which is fitting given the sample on the first track. This album sounds like a dance party on the Enterprise, and though it definitely came out in the early 90s, it still sounds futuristic. How an album can sound futuristic and dated at the same time, I don't know. If it didn't drag on a bit too long, this would probably be a 10. As it is, I'll agree with Houdini and give it the lightest possible 9 out of 10. I'm a big Orbital fan as well, and I agree that this is great, but not their best work. Mostly because it doesn't have the complexity or beauty of some of their later work. However, even in the early days, it was obvious Orbital had ambition. The long songs, the surprisingly varied sound for a techno album, the way it sounds futuristic and dated at the same time, all make it a fascinating listen. However, I will say Orbital would learn to utilize their song lengths better on later albums, and I fail to see the point of the unlisted track. Belfast would have been the closing track. It's a great album, but it's not quite a 9 for me. 8 out of 10. Wow, we seem to all be on close to the same page so far. I'll join you guys on that page. This album surprised me. I've never really delved into techno, but after hearing this, I may have to. The synths have a mechanical feel to them, which I find beautiful. The dance beats are a lot of fun too. It does sound a bit cheesy and cliche in places, but songs like The Mobius, High Rise, and the live track Midnight all have a mysterious aura to them that I appreciate. If it wasn't for that unlisted track, this album would have no skips. As it is, it has one. I'll join Bolt and Houdini in giving it the lightest possible 9 out of 10. I was not expecting us all to have the same opinion, but here we are. Kind of like the opposite of that Chiari Pamiu album from yesterday that none of us agreed on. Anyway, this album is great. It does drag a bit in places, and sometimes the robotic synths become so robotic that they end up conveying nothing to me, but I still enjoyed it overall. The dance beats were a lot of fun, and there were enough moments of warmth to make the colder moments tolerable. Sure, it's ridiculously dated, but it's a fun kind of dated. And if it wasn't for the unlisted track, every song would have been great. I'll join Skyler in giving it the strongest possible 8 out of 10. Wow, we really are close in our rating of this one. Now, let's watch Forrest ruin it. For once, your predictions are correct, Draven. This album is not an 8 or a 9. Aside from Speed Freak, Fahrenheit 303, Belfast, and the live track Chime, none of these tracks are great. Those 4 tracks are great because they have a warm feel despite how mechanical they sound. Everything else conveys little to no emotion to me. And the repetitive, emotionless beats start to grate on me after an hour and 17 minutes. Also, I found the Star Trek sample on the Mobius to be incredibly cheesy. It's like they were saying, "Hey look, we're futuristic." Ironically, that sample dates this album even more than it already was. I appreciate the complexity, though they'd improve upon that on later albums, but this album is just okay to me. 6 out of 10, sorry to break apart our agreement. That's alright, Forrest. We're supposed to be honest after all. Anyway, time to add up our scores. This album gets a combined score of 49 out of 60. That puts it above both of our extras this week, as well as Static Disposal by Debris and Pamiu Revolution by Chiari Pamiu. However, it is below Curtis by Curtis Mayfield and Firepower by Judas Priest. So, pretty close to the middle of the ranking. Well, Houdini, you did better than Bolt and I, but you couldn't beat Blaze and Draven. Oh well. Tomorrow is Forrest's turn, as well as the last day of week 2. Will Forrest take the top spot from Draven? Tune in to find out. Anyway, let's throw it back to Morgan. And that's my video. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. I'm Morgan the Rebellious Reviewer, and I'm out.